Big week this week for elections. I think there's 23 by-elections in all that happened on Thursday. Apologies again for the Saturday video, not a Friday upload. Results weren't declared until the middle of the afternoon on Friday, and I had a thing yesterday afternoon, so apologies for the Saturday video again. Welcome back. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please do consider hitting the subscribe button down in the bottom right-hand corner. And with that, we're going to get straight into these results because, like I said, we've got a lot to get through. So we're going to start in Scotland, work our way down south. Remember to please keep your feedback and suggestions for this hub coming as we move forward. Obviously, your ideas will start to work their way into how it all looks. So in Highland Council up in Scotland, East Sutherland and Ederton ward, and this is a win for the Independents. So turnout was down about 10 points, as you can see on the right hand side there, but still pretty healthy turnout of just under 40%, mind you. This was an independent hold, so an independent stepped down, and another independent has taken their place. Now, just with the Scottish elections, just bear in mind, they use single transferable votes up there for their councils. I haven't figured out a way yet of implementing a full STV graphic and stuff like that. So this is just the first preference votes, which I think more often than not for by-elections, to be honest with you, when there's only one seat going, it tends to be the first preference tends to win, unless it's very close. But anyway, so this is the first preferences. They got 40% of the first preference votes, and then went on to win it. The Independent, the Liberal Democrats behind them on 33%. You can ignore the majority down the bottom here because that's not how it works for STV, so that's not relevant for this. But obviously this whole thing is coded for first past the post, basically. SNP in third, but a long way behind, and nobody else really worth talking about. So an independent hold up there. Well, yeah, essentially an independent hold. Obviously, it's not the same independent; it's a different person, but no other party getting onto the council in Highland. So that's that one. We'll move across to Aberdeen, where there was another by-election up in Scotland last night, and it was in George Street / Harbour ward. And here is an SNP victory. You can see quite far ahead of everybody else. Only on a third of the vote, mind you. So it's quite interesting to see a fairly low vote share. I mean, by our current standards, 33% is about right for winning a seat. But and again, this is like first preferences. But interesting to see first preferences is 33% for the SNP. But nobody else really all that close. Labour less than half of that, and all the other parties basically very close to each other, but a long way behind. So we don't see that very often. But look, SNP here, only a 13% turnout, mind you. As you can see, that's very, very low. The SNP did manage to gain the seat off of the Liberal Democrats. So I'll change the font for the SNP because I appreciate that's very, very difficult to see on that yellow background. Yeah, I think this was essentially a notional SNP hold because, as you can see, they already had 2 seats. If we go to the vote share change percentage, actually, and look at this one, you'll see that they're already quite far ahead anyway. They're down 9 points in this ward, in this by-election, the SNP, which means on first preferences, they got 42% last time. So the Liberal Democrats managed to get a seat based off of the single transferable vote process, so they would have got a seat further down in round 4 or 5 or something. And obviously, with the first preferences as they are, it was always very unlikely the Lib Dems were going to hold this seat. So it's a notional SNP hold, really, rather than them beating the Liberal Democrats. A Reform were the biggest movers with a 10-point increase, but go back to this screen, you can see they're a long way behind. So good win for the SNP on Aberdeen City Council. Obviously, a week after the Conservatives won a parliamentary seat there, but I think in a slightly different part of the city. Right, move down into England then, and let's go into... we'll start with Haydock Ward in St Helens. So... I think one of these was countermanded, and I think it might be the other one. So one of them was countermanded, postponed election from the 7th of May, because I think a death of a candidate in the campaign. So it was held just this week rather than on the 7th of May, and one of them was a by-election. So I think this one is a by-election. Yeah, it was. So it says Reform gain from VAC there. That's because I changed something in my sheet. You can ignore that. It's a Reform hold, actually, on this seat. So this was a Reform councillor stood down after the election last month. And look, good result for Reform, because we've seen in the past few weeks they've struggled when they have to defend these seats so soon after fighting them. Look, it was very close. Only 86 votes in it, a 4% margin of victory for Reform here. They got, again, third of the vote. Like I said, it's pretty standard these days, isn't it? Independent in second place and Labour down in third. So again, look, not great news for Labour. We'll have a look at the vote share changes. And of course, this is changes with the 7th of May this year. So Reform were down 11 points, which I think we would expect, but which is why they've done quite well to hold the seat. Green's down 20 points. I don't think they stood. Oh, they did stand. No, so Green's down a lot here. And Independent came through. They were the biggest gainer of 24 points. So look, a good hold for Reform. They did very, very well in St Helens. Of course, they control that council now after the 7th of May, and they've done well to hold on to this seat. We saw, like I said, we saw last week. Or was it a couple of weeks ago, sorry, when they had to defend those seats in Essex, and they lost very heavily to the Conservatives. But this was a similar situation, defending a seat that they'd just won, but they managed to do it here. So good win for Reform in Haydock. In the other ward, Town Centre, this was the full election, so this was not a by-election when it loads. This was, oh no, I'm in Farnworth, I'm in the wrong place, hang on. Right, the other one, beg my pardon, is in St Helens Town Centre, which then, like this one, was the full election. So this was not a by-election, it was postponed from the 7th of May, and Reform again have won this ward with the largest vote share, but they're going to share the ward with Labour because, as you can see, Labour weren't too far behind, actually, only 3 points, or 2.5 points even, 52 votes ahead were Reform. So the Labour candidate beat the second Reform candidate to the second spot. So this was a full election. Reform again with the big movers. They've come from a standing start all the way up to 42.3%. Very low turnout again of 20%. Unfortunately, we need to get these turnout numbers up even for by-elections. It's very important if you have a by-election in your area, go out and vote. You know, it might not seem like the most important thing, but at the end of the day, you're getting your opportunity to have part in the democratic process, and you should take advantage of that. Vote share changes then, as we saw, Reform have gone up, obviously, a massive. Labour down massive, almost 40 points down for Labour here. Look, this is the challenge that Andy Burnham has got. You can see there's no, we'll see with other results tonight, no immediate payoff for Labour yet with Burnham coming in. So he's got work to do if he's going to turn the ship around, because at the moment they are in former heartland. They are still just bleeding support to Reform. The Greens also moved up 12 points. Tories down 10, which is, again, interesting, isn't it? Look, we'll talk more about the Tories later in this video, I think, but the rally of the Tories in their former heartland areas, like Essex, we saw them rallying a little bit in Essex last week. I don't know how necessarily, like I said, I think that was slightly idiosyncratic to the fact that the guy, the councillor, just stood down, a few weeks after being elected. But we've seen a rally there. We'll see it later. They had a good result in Hertsmere. So the southeast, I think the Conservatives are rallying, but outside of the southeast, I just think their vote is not holding up. Not northwest is always decreasing to 2%. So they've gone from, look, they're never going to win where they're on 12%, but they're down to 2%, and they're just being totally phased out of these races up in the northwest and also the West Midlands and the northeast, places like that. But a good win for Reform anyway, and Labour getting the seat on this one, so I thought we'd mention that. We'll go down here without going to the other bit of the map. So this is Halton, Farnworth Ward and Halton. Again, we're back to by-elections now, of course. So Labour have won here with 51% of the vote, and they actually increased their vote share. Again, look, this is changes with just the other week. Now, it's not the same seat. This was a seat that wasn't, so Halton elects by thirds, so it wasn't one of the seats in Halton that was elected last month. It was one of the other seats from the other cycles. But Labour have actually improved their vote share, so they're up 10 points, comparing it with just a few weeks ago, and they held their seat, so they were defending a seat here, and they held on. Reform won that one on the 7th of May. Reform not too far behind, but a 14-point margin is pretty comfortable for Labour, actually, 239 votes in it. So look, a good result for Labour here. Not sure why their vote shares increased by 11 points in just over a month. If you've got any ideas on why that might be happening in Halton, let me know down in the comments. Like I say, I don't think there's an immediate bounce for Andy Burnham, but maybe there is a little bit in certain places, potentially. Maybe that's what we're seeing there. In fact, it looks like a lot of the Green voters, just looking at this, I only just spotted that, looks like a lot of the Green voters decided, actually, this time I'm going to vote for Labour, and that has essentially won them the seat. Not quite, because they won by 15 points, but yeah, looks like some Green voters switching back to Labour there. So we'll move on down into Wales, shall we? I think we've done that one. Yeah, move on to Wales then. So we go to Denbighshire. And again, another busy week in Wales for by-elections, actually. And I have to say, I'm not going to say that ward name. You can feel free in the comments to tell me how I would say it, but I'm not actually going to do that. So this ward in Denbighshire, again, is an independent victory. Have come from nowhere, standing start, to get 46% of the vote. and they have won the seat from Plaid Cymru. So Plaid Cymru lost this seat. I'm pretty sure most, if not all, of these elections in Wales this week, again, are former councillors who were elected to the Senedd in May, and so their seats have become vacant on their councils. So this would be a Plaid Cymru councillor who is now a member of the Welsh Assembly. So turnout 39% is not too bad. 6% or 7% margin of victory of 41 votes. And look, I think it's just interesting, because I mean, we'll see some other ones in a minute, because Plaid Cymru gained one off of reform as well. It's just everything's just in flux, and I think that's kind of the story of this week as we keep going through. There is a lot of flux going on in the country in terms of voting. Big vote share changes though. Tories down 28 points. So like I said, I think there's a positive narrative around the Tories at the moment, but I think it only extends to certain regions of the country, and mostly the southeast or the east. When you go outside into Wales, West Midlands, northeast, northwest, this sort of stuff starts happening, and look, a massive vote share decline for the Conservative Party there. The Independent, of course, has come in from a standing start to win the election, and Plaid Cymru also down 30 points, which is quite interesting. Again, if you've got insight here into why that might be happening in this ward in Denbighshire, then do let me know why the Plaid vote has gone down so heavily. We don't really see that very often at the moment. The Plaid Cymru are kind of in the ascendancy in Wales, so it's quite rare to see their vote share declining like that. So good win for another independent there. Moving down to the south of Wales, we go to Carmarthenshire next, and here we had a by-election in, I can't remember the ward names off the top of my head. I think I might be able to pronounce this one, or Llaganech. I'm going to go with that. You can let me know how good or bad that was. So here, Plaid Cymru have won this one. This is one they won off of Reform, I believe. Yeah, they did. So this is a Plaid Cymru gain from Reform. I didn't have the turnout date, I'm afraid, so ignore the 0%. I don't know what the turnout was. And look, Reform, you can see the biggest movers down almost 20 points here. So again, unusual to see. Let me know what you think about this. Reform are the other party in the ascendancy in Wales, along with Plaid Cymru for the most part. And again, it's also very uncommon to see their vote share declining quite so heavily in Wales. So, like I say, get in the comments, let me know why you think that's happening. Looking at the other vote share changes, but really, Reform is the only notable change. Most of them are sort of margin of error changes, but Reform down quite heavily, 19 points, and Plaid up 11. So that was enough for Plaid to win the seat. And they won the seat very comfortably, 41% of the vote, 145 vote margin, with 12.4% margin of victory as well. So, yeah, Reform forced all the way down into third place here in Llaganech. So that's interesting, isn't it? I don't know what's going on there. Those last two results, I'm not sure what that is all about. But like I said, let me know what you think in the comments, because I know we've got some Welsh viewers on the channel, and your insight is always most valuable. So the final one, I think, in Wales is no, there's two more. Beg your pardon. We go to Rhondda first. Then we're going to look at Treorchy ward, and I mean, look, this is a crushing bit. We don't need to spend much time on this one, do we? Plaid Cymru got 71% of the vote on a 27% turnout. You probably can't quite make out what that number says. They got just over 1,100 votes, because it's gone off the side of the scale. I mean, crushing victory. They got 55% margin, 887 votes ahead of Reform, who are in second place. This is a gain off of Labour, I think. Oh, no, sorry, it's a hold. Of course it is, yeah. It's a hold for Plaid Cymru. But look at the vote share changes. You can see the biggest mover there was Labour, down 42 points. So again, I mean, this is just... This is catastrophic for Labour in the heartland. Rhondda, of course, the MP is Chris Bryant, long-time MP, and just the whole South of Wales area has been Labour heartland for so long, and they are in the trenches, Labour, when it comes to Wales. I think they are in big trouble, and I don't know if Andy Burnham is going to be the sort of leader to turn that around, really. I'm not sure how much he's going to appeal to the Welsh Labour voters. Again, let me know what you think in the comments, but I'm not sure that's going to necessarily work all that well. But Plaid up 26 points, Reform also up 16 points, but that was only enough to finish in a very distant second place. So yeah, just look at that bar for Labour, almost going off the scale with how much of their vote share has collapsed here in this ward, and they are in big trouble in Wales. if an election comes early, they're in no fit state to be winning seats in Wales at the moment, I think. So, and they've got a lot of work to do to turn it around if they're going to win them or hold them in if the election even in 3 years' time. So, Labour very much in the trenches here. We'll move across the border into Merthyr Tydfil, and we're going to look at. Sorry, I keep having to stall as the page loads so I can remember what the ward name is, which is Dowlays and Pant. Very good in Merthyr Tydfil. So here, it was an independent defence. Labour have gained from the independent here, so it's a mixed bag. Like I said, the country's just in flux at the moment. There is a mixed bag here for every party. We've seen Reform have a loss. We've seen them do well in St Helens. There's more on that score. The Tories win some, they lose some. It is very much. It's a great week this week, and I think I've probably alluded to this in the title and or the thumbnail. The country is very much undecided right now, and we are seeing this week because there's so many by-elections across the country, from the Highlands in Scotland all the way down to Brighton on the south coast of England this week. And what we're seeing is no one party grasping the nettle or grabbing the bull by the horns, if you want to use another metaphor. There's just there's no one party dominating, and of course I suppose that's what we'd expect with the way the opinion polls are at the moment. But it's just a mixed bag all over the place for everybody, even for Labour winning here. So they got 40% of the vote. The independent, obviously, it would be a different independent person, but this one was down 36 points. They were the biggest movers of the lot. They got 24 points and finished 141 votes behind Labour on 16 with a 16% margin for Labour. Reform were behind them on 18%, and then Plaid Cymru on 14%. Let's have a look at the other movers. So there's the independent with a big reduction. Reform were the biggest gainers, again, as they tend to be. Was that from a standing start for them? Yes, it was. So again, we're still seeing a lot of Reform increases are from standing start, so they tend to be the biggest gainers on the ballot. Everybody else, I mean, Labour up just under 9 points is a good result for them. I mean, I'm not sure it quite takes the sting out of a more than 40-point collapse just across the border in Rhondda, but I suppose it's at least going in the right direction for them. And Plaid were up 11 points as well. So we've covered Wales and most of North England. So we'll move across now and have a look at the rest of England, and then do the counties after we looked at the districts. And we will start in Nuneaton and Bedworth. There's a bit of a buggy error here on my map. It's not no overall control. It's a Reform minority control. That should be saying that. I'm not sure why it doesn't. I'll look into that. But Nuneaton and Bedworth, Reform did very well here last month again. And again, this was a seat that it wasn't their defence. They were defending the seat that's in the other election cycle, which is 2028, I believe. So they won that seat as well. So turnout was down 12 points on a few weeks ago to just 17% of the vote. That's criminal. We need to get those numbers up, please. But to Reform have won the seat. Now, interestingly, Labour are actually the biggest movers according to my chart here. I'm not sure if there's a bug in that somewhere, but no, that probably is right, actually. So bearing in mind, this is comparing the result in the same ward a few weeks ago, but for a different seat. So Labour won this seat when it was last elected in 2024, it would have been. But they had a bad result last week. Oh, sorry, I keep saying last week. Last month, they had a bad result in Nuneaton and Bedworth, but they're up 20 points on that. So look, I don't know if how much the low turnout is affecting this. Again, the Green vote down and the Labour vote up almost equally. So some alarm bells maybe for the Green Party there. Again, like I said, it's a week where everything's in flux. The Greens do have a good result later on, but the second one we've seen today where Green voters appear to be switching directly to Labour. Probably back to Labour. So that's interesting. Maybe that's a Burnham thing, that we are expecting Andy Burnham to take Labour in a leftwards direction. Maybe that is a little bit of an immediate sort of Burnham bounce before he's even the Prime Minister or the leader of the Labour Party. I don't know, but interesting to see that happen twice in 1 week. Nobody else really moves all that much. Reform were up 2 points on their vote share just a few weeks ago. So Reform always got 50% of the vote here. It really was a two-horse race. The Greens didn't stand. Sorry, so that's why the Green vote has gone to Labour in this one. So disregard everything I just said for the last 60 seconds. So that would explain that. The Conservatives very distant third place on less than 10% of the votes. So Reform here with a majority of 60 votes, 6 points in it, and they now hold both of those seats. And with that turnout though is very bad, not great. We will move on then. Let's go and have a look at let's go east and then we'll swing round west. So we'll start over in Uttlesford, Essex, and here we go. Like I said, it's a mixed bag for everybody. Conservatives then with another good result in Essex. So this is the second or third, I suppose, good result in Essex in a week, because they had a very good result here last week when they defeated Reform in Rochford, and also for Essex, an Essex County Council seat as well. Here it's the Liberal Democrats who have suffered. So the Conservatives, 46% of the vote, very, very impressive. Turnout was 33.8%, which isn't too bad. It was down 5 points on the full election a few years ago. But the Conservatives won with an 80-vote majority, 14.5 points in it, so very, very comfortable, really. The Liberal Democrats down in second place on 32% of the vote, and as you can see, were the biggest losers here, or the biggest movers in the wrong direction. They dropped 25.7 points, the Lib Dems. So, yeah, look, I don't think the Lib Dems have been all that strong this year. It's been a bit of a weird, lacklustre year for the Liberal Democrats, I think. Last year, they were up there with Reform as the by-election standout performers. They won a lot of by-elections, second only to Reform, of course. This year, I don't know what the numbers are in terms of how many they've actually won, but it just feels like we don't talk about the Lib Dems as much. Maybe that's based on where the seats are falling and things like that. But yeah, and results like this, they've had a few sort of dodgy results, the Lib Dems, this year, I feel, so far. So this was a gain then for the Conservatives from the Liberal Democrats, as you can see down there. Let's have a look at the other changes. So look, a good result for the Conservatives again, and they'll take heart from this, looking like Essex is kind of rallying for them. Lib Dems down a massive 25 points. If there's a reason for this big drop in the Lib Dems, if there's a local idiosyncratic reason for it, please do let me know in the comments. Labour were down 9 points. Reform were up a pretty impressive 16 points as well, but only good enough to finish in third place. So look, the Tories are going to be very, very happy. They are very keen, which I think we can understand, why they would be, to make a lot of these by-election victories at the moment, and they need to. They're always in the similar situation to Reform in 2020, early 2025, where the Tories now need to prove or reprove that they can actually win and beat Reform. Otherwise, they're gonna fade away, and people will pick Reform, even if they're holding their nose to do it. I think if they feel like that's the best option for the right of centre party to win. So the Tories have to prove that they are in with a chance. So we're moving to Hertsmere then. Again, I think this was another Conservative, good Conservative result. Bushy Park, and it was, yeah. So again, 43% of the vote for the Tories here. And again, look at the Lib Dems, the biggest movers, down 20 points. So two really, really bad results for the Liberal Democrats, losing out to the Conservative Party. Look, it's interesting. I mean, the Conservatives have made a lot of having changed since 2024, of having, kicked out or not allowing to stand, at least, a lot of the what we call wets. But, well, is our Lib Dem voters going back to the Tories here? Which would be sort of inverse to what they're suggesting is happening to the party internally. So interesting, isn't it? 37% turnout is actually pretty good for a by-election. The Conservatives then won with a 221 votes, which was a 10-point margin. Again, fairly comfortable, to be honest with you. Let's have a look at the other changes. So the Tories are actually only up 3 points here, but the Lib Dems were down 20. So this was more of the Conservative vote held up and the Lib Dems collapsed, and that allowed the Tories to win. Not so much of a good positive gainer here for the Tories, but still a very good result, of course. Reform up 19 points, again, are the biggest movers in the positive direction. So, but only good enough to finish in third place. And look, it's that area, Hertsmere. They did all right in Hertfordshire last year, Reform, but it is more of, it's just one of those areas that is just more Conservative and Liberal Democrats, similar to Buckinghamshire we saw last year as well. So look, I'm not surprised to see them in third place there. So this was, again, a Conservative gain from the Liberal Democrats. So yeah, very impressive results for the Conservatives here, and like I say, heartening for them. You can understand why they're going to make a lot of noise about it. They've been very hard pressed for good news, have the Tories, over the last couple of years, so of course they are going to make the most of it. Right, into the capital, there was a lot of green defences, and a Labour one as well. So we're going to start here in, I think this is Haringey, when it loads. There we go, Woodside Ward in Haringey. So turnout was down 12 points. Of course, these were elected just a few weeks ago. All of these were elected just on the 7th of May. So turnout was down 11 points to 24.4%. Actually, the Dems are the biggest movers, only 6 points though. So there's not much you can gather from that. If that's the biggest move, there's not much has changed here over the last 6 weeks. However, it was a Green gain from the Labour Party. So the Greens managed to sneak ahead of Labour, who won here. So this was a Labour hold. Sorry, a Labour defence, beg your pardon. This was a Labour defence, and they lost a seat to the Greens. So whatever happened in the movements, it was just enough to push the Greens ahead. And the Labour Party actually did increase their vote share, but the Greens have increased it slightly more. Now, of course, it's a 3-councillor ward here. So the Greens would have finished ahead of Labour before they won a seat. Labour won 2 seats, the Greens won 1. So it was very tight between Labour and the Greens, as you can see here. But with just 1 seat available here, the Greens have pipped Labour to the post and won the seat. So yeah, the Greens are still ascendant in London for now. Let's see how long that lasts. I still maintain I think the Greens have lost quite a bit of momentum since the 7th of May. I think just feels that the wind's gone out of their sails a little bit, but this was a good result for them. Reform down in 3rd place. No, frankly, nobody else worth talking about here is a two-horse race. Also in Haringey was Northumberland Park, and this was a Green defence, I believe. Various reasons for why Green councillors stood down and stuff. I beg your pardon. No, this was a Labour. This was a Labour. Was it Labour or was it Green? No, it was. I think it was a. Apologies, guys. I probably should have made notes for this one because there were so many going on. I didn't, so I've just consulted some notes. And this was a Green defence, but the Labour Party have beaten them, so a good result for Labour here. I'm not sure if this is entirely accurate. I don't know if something's gone wrong with the sheet here, saying the Greens are up 27 points. That seems. I suppose it is possible actually. Labour got both the other seats, and the Greens won 1, so maybe that is what happened. But the Greens with a big increase in their vote share, but it wasn't enough to beat Labour, so they've won that seat now. So again, similar to the last one, of course, Labour finished ahead of the Greens last time, much more comfortably than this time, and they won 2 of the seats. The Green candidate, or one of the Green candidates, got enough votes to finish and get one of the other seats. But this time with just 1 seat up, unfortunately, that didn't work out for the Greens. So the Labour Party have got all 3 seats now on Northumberland Park ward in Haringey. Apologies for that. I got a bit mixed up on what was going on. Only a 38 vote margin. They're very, very narrow, and which is 2 points. And again, there's nobody else worth talking about here. Turnout was 22%. Right, moving down across into London, or further down into London, we'll go to Hackney. There was another 2, and I think these were both Green defences. Hackney Central and the Greens here up 26 points, at the biggest movers on a few weeks ago. Turnout 15%, so again a very, very low turnout. 2 or 3 this week with very low turnouts. Labour on 42% of the vote, 52 votes behind, and a margin of 3.4% for the Green Party. There's the changes. Labour are down here very heavily, even on just a few weeks ago. So a lot has changed there. And look, the Greens, like I said, they're holding up in London at the moment. Obviously, it's only been 6 weeks, so you would kind of expect that. But they're not necessarily suffering from this sort of voter. Well, I was going to say they're not suffering from this voter anger at people resigning for whatever reason in the immediate aftermath of an election. But actually, with 15% turnout, a lot of the voters just didn't bother voting this time round. So a good result for the Greens here. Again, it's only a 2-horse race. There's no point talking about anybody else in this one. We'll have a quick look at Dalston Ward in Hackney. This is again another Green defence and another Green hold, so they're up 6 points in this time, way over 50% of the vote, so very, very comfortable victory for the Greens here. Turnout again just 14%, so same sort of thing, just people not bothering to turn out. But 207 votes was the margin for the Greens, 21.7 points in it, and you can see this Green hold. We can look at the vote share changes, and you will see not really all that much change from a few weeks ago in this one, just a safe Green hold. We've got another one in London to look at, which is going to be in North Acton, in Ealing. It's a similar story, really. The Greens here hold their seats, the one that they have on this ward. Turnout again down 13 points, but much healthier, although not great, 24.2%. And the Greens won with 30% of the vote. Look, it's not uncommon we see that, is it, these days, winning elections on 30% of the vote. It's become kind of commonplace. 162 votes ahead of Labour, 6 points in it. Let's have a look at the change. You can see Labour are the biggest movers, down 8.7 points. The Lib Dems actually increasing by almost the exact same amount. So that's an interesting one. But again, to be honest, there's not really much change there from a few weeks ago. So a Green hold in London. And I'm pretty sure that wraps up our London wards. Have we done this one? Yeah, that's Hertsmere. Yeah, so we've done that southeast little area. Let's move down to Brighton on the south coast. And I've clicked the wrong council. Beg your pardon. There we go. Just move across there, and we're going to go to. I should have checked. We've got Goldsmith ward in Brighton Hove. So Brighton is still a Labour-controlled council, which I actually, when I was putting my sheet together, I thought it was Green-controlled. So clearly I've missed the memo somewhere. But it's still a Labour-controlled council. But for how much longer? The whole of Brighton Council is up for election next year in May 2027. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do subscribe now. We'll be doing live streams and all that sort of stuff around the election time next year. Big election, by the way, because you've got all of the most, if not all, most of the district councils that elected this year in England will be electing a third again. Plus, you've got councils like Brighton where they elect the full council, and there's a large number of those, over 100. So it's going to be a big election year next year. So the Greens here in Goldsmith, Brighton increased. You can see the biggest movers up 22.2 points to just under 50% of the vote. Gaining the seat from Labour. I'll just show you there for confirmation, but they did gain the seat from Labour. And I mean, look, this is, I suppose, not a surprise. Like I say, I thought the Greens already controlled the full council, but Brighton has been for a while one of the first places in the country that moved away from Labour towards the Greens. At least one constituency in Brighton did, and I think the rest of the city is gradually following. So this is not all that surprising, but it is, again, just alarm bells for Labour, isn't it? Let's look at the vote share changes, and you see the Greens up 22 points and the Labour Party down 19 points. It's almost a direct transfer, I expect, there from Labour to the Greens. Nobody else really worth talking about because there was nobody else even close to winning it. Again, look, Reform in third place, but it doesn't really mean anything when you're that far behind. But they did get 100 votes more than the Tories, which is interesting. So, yeah, look, a good win for the Greens in Brighton. I don't think it's going to surprise anyone, like I said, but it just shows, again, another, same as what we're talking about with Wales, a lot of work to do for Andy Burnham to turn the ship around for Labour, because they are in the trenches. Right, down into Devon, and we're going to look at Dawlish. Hang on, it's Dawlish something. Dawlish Southwest in Teinbridge. So here's a good result for the Liberal Democrats. This was a Liberal Democrat defence. We haven't had many down in the Southwest, actually. There was a glut last year, wasn't there? There was quite a few that happened in the Southwest, and you really see the Lib Dems coming to their own, I think, down in this part of the country. So they got 45% of the vote on a 31% turnout, 241 votes ahead of Reform in second place, 15.8 margin. In terms of percentages, there's the hold. Let's have a look at the vote share changes then. So Reform, the big gainers, up 29 points to finish in second place. The Greens are also up 15 points. And I think the Greens, we haven't necessarily seen it too much, but we have had a couple of elections where the Greens have done quite well in the Southwest. And I think there are pockets of areas where, again, I've said it before, I think there's a lot of overlap between some Conservative voters, Liberal Democrat voters, and Green voters. Now, and these areas are traditionally Conservative heartland areas. They've become Liberal Democrat heartlands at the moment. Well, heartland may be going a bit too far, actually, but they're certainly probably strongholds for the Lib Dems down in the Southwest. But I think there's a lot of crossover between Liberal Democrat voters or the Liberal Democrat target audience and the Green Party, I think, and I said it before the election that the Greens might have been a blind spot for the Lib Dems. It didn't work out that way. I think the Greens had a very lacklustre night, actually, on the 7th of May this year. But I think that there is this big crossover that goes from Conservative to Green, which I think people find a bit counterintuitive, but I think it exists. So yeah, others, we had independents here that didn't stand this time, so that was, some of that vote was available as well. So yeah, look, Reform, I mean, the Tories didn't do too well here anyway because they're only down 2 points. They got 12 points last time, but interesting to see them so far behind Reform and finishing in last place of those who stood. So that's all of the district and borough councils. We have got a couple of counties to look at as well. So we're going to have a look at Cambridgeshire first. Now, this is an interesting result. So Cambridgeshire, Roman Bank and Peckover electoral division. So Reform win it by a hair, 26 votes, one point margin. This was a Reform defence, so they successfully held. Didn't have the turnout data, I do apologise. Now, you can see the Tories are up 8.7 points, and they're the biggest movers, so a positive result for the Conservatives in that vein. But this was an ex-Conservative MP standing as the candidate. So interesting that Reform managed to win against that competition. It's also one that I wouldn't have necessarily expected Reform to have held on to. Cambridgeshire, much more Liberal Democrat sort of leaning. But when you get up into the northern part of the county, which I think is probably where we're looking, it is, yeah. When you get up to this part, you can see it is Reform. When you get up here onto the border with sort of I suppose that Lincolnshire, yeah, border with the Lincolnshire up here, it does get a lot more Reform. So, but it's one that I wouldn't have been surprised if they hadn't held on to, based on the fact that they have struggled in the last few weeks in these by-elections. But let's have a look at the other changes. So the Tories are up 8, Reform are down 5. So I don't think there's any big story there. I think it is good for the Tories to increase by almost 10 points. That is significance, probably not the word, but it's getting towards a meaningful increase. Reform are down 5 points, which is, I always have my arbitrary line at 5%. If it's below 5% either way, I don't think there's much in it. This is just over 5 points, so I don't think there's much in that either, really, for 0.6. It's the incumbents. I think the incumbency curse slightly, probably for Reform, but no real movement there. So it was very, very close. I think it's the closest one of the night, 26 votes, but Reform held on. So this is a very good result for Reform. Steals some gloating material from the Tories on the internet. And lastly then for this week, thank you if you've stuck with us all the way to the end here. We're almost there. We're just going to look at Stretton Division in Staffordshire. And again, it's a Reform hold. So, and again, very, very close. Actually, this one is about the same as the Cambridgeshire one. So 31 votes in this one, 1.3 point margin for Reform ahead of the Conservatives. And so very, very competitive, but Reform hold on. So two, you know, the story of the night would be completely different actually if these two had gone the other way. If that margin had been, you know, any less and gone over to the Conservatives, then I think the narrative of this video would be, oh yeah, Reform are in the trenches a bit now. They really are struggling. So it hasn't worked out that way. 2 good wins for Reform, albeit very close. Again, the Conservatives are the biggest movers. Again, I don't have turnout information. Sorry. Similar stuff to what we just said. Look, the Tories here are up 5.6 points. There's not much in that for me. Reform down 2, so there's not really any change there. As you can see, very, very small movements. So yeah, look, good wins for Reform. But like I said, this week really just no party is sort of grabbing the bull by the horns. And you know, there's our map. That's the county's map. You can see Reform obviously, after last year in particular, and the additions they made of Essex, Norfolk and Suffolk this year, is dominated by Reform colours, incredibly. They've done that in 2 years. If we go to this one, obviously, you can see it's a hodgepodge, really, isn't it? And now this map is not completed because I haven't got all the data in there. So a lot of these grey coloured ones, like Wykehaven, for example, Stratford-on-Avon, I've not put data into the sheet, so it's not a complete map. But you can see it's a hodgepodge at the moment. You know, a bit of Reform teal on there, Conservative blue, Labour red still, but they're vulnerable up in the northwest up here. You know, they're still running these councils by virtue of the fact that there was only a third of the councillors being elected. If it had been any more, they would have lost control of most, if not all, of these councils. So, and also you can see how many Lib Dem councils there are, even with the incomplete data. They are a very strong local government party. So we are, like I said, we are very undecided at the moment as a country. And it's my view that in a few years' time, it will the system will be forced to produce another 2 parties that are preeminent, and we will sort of return to a more familiar look of 2 parties, maybe 3, vying for power. Because you can't carry on with 5 or 6 that we've got at the moment. It's just not going to work on first past the post. We can't keep being governed on 33% of the vote, I don't think. So there you are. That's my 2 cents. Thank you very much for watching a long video this week. So many by-elections to get into, and an instructive week. Like I said, I think having them across the country, so many of them, really does just go to show that that there is no one party in the ascendancy right now. So thank you all for watching. I can't remember how many we've got on next week. I'm not going to do around a future by-election a bit now because It's a long video anyway. So keep an eye out on X. I'll probably post something on X about next week's by-elections. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.